Hello, this is my review of Hollow Men by Una McCormack. This is a Star Trek Deep Space Nine book from 2005. At the turning point of the Dominion War, Captain Benjamin Sisko of Starbase Deep Space Nine, facing certain defeat by the relentless forces of the Jem'Hadar and the Cardassians, went through a secret plan to secure the aid of the Federation's longtime adversaries, the Romulans. What began as a desperate attempt to save lives became a descent into an abyss of deception, moral compromises, and outright criminal acts as Sisko sacrificed every ideal he held dear in order to preserve the civilization that espoused those selfsame principles. Now the aftermath of that choice is revealed for the first time as Sisko was summoned to Earth to take part in the first Allied talks to come out of the Federation's new partnership with the Romulans. But Sisko's conscience weighs heavily on him, compelling him to seek some kind of penance for what he has done, while elements within Starfleet itself set in motion a scheme to use Elim Garak as a pawn against a human political dissident who may hold the key to the outcome of the war. Okay, so that was the book summary. And so this story, as you could probably tell, was a follow-up to the episode In the Pale Moonlight, an excellent story in one of Deep Space Nine's most popular episodes. And this is by Una McCormack, and she's really one of my favorite writers. She is an excellent Deep Space Nine writer. This book had, it actually had two separate storylines. So one of them was about Sisko and Garak going to Earth for the Allied talks. The other storyline takes place on Deep Space Nine. It's about Odo, and there's a ship there that has a lot of latinum, and Odo is worried that the latinum is going to get stolen. Now both stories were good stories, but the one with Sisko and Garak really was so much more exciting than the other one. They almost could have left the other one out, even though but they were both good stories. But I'll just go with so the one on the space station we can talk a little bit about first. So it mostly focuses on Odo, and there's a Hemaxi, which is an alien. That's the name of the alien species, but the Hemaxi is someone that Odo thinks is probably there to perhaps steal the latinum that was brought in by this cargo ship. But the Hemaxi says he's there to have an auction because he deals in antiques. And one thing about it is Bashir, Dax. Well, Jadzia Dax is thinking that Bashir is depressed for some reason, so she asks Odo to get Bashir to help him with a case, and Odo was like, well, I don't know. But then later he kind of does get Bashir involved, and so it's a good story with Odo and Bashir and also Quark, because Quark is dealing with the Hemaxi that's having the auction. Quark lets him have the auction there at his bar. And the people that were on the ship that has the latinum, and they were just delivering the latinum somewhere else. Their ship just had to dock on the space station because it needed some repairs. But their crew, they have one person on the crew that's really good at playing Dabo. He's really good at any kind of gambling game. The book doesn't really explain that, but it just says that, like the guy is just incredibly lucky. And so Odo was worried that the guy is going to clean him out. And something happens on the station where everything gets locked down, just like the episode where there was the Cardassian program that got activated, except this is not the Cardassian program. So they're trying to figure out, why is everything locked down? Why is that, the turbo lifts don't work anymore, and everybody is sectioned off. They're held in by force fields away from everyone else on the station. And that does become an interesting story to see how Odo handles the situation. And so, yes, it was a good story, but it's still it can't hold up to you've got this other story about this political intrigue with Garak and Sisko. So going into that story with Garak and Sisko. So first of all, they're on a shuttle together, or runabout, going to Earth, and Garak mentions this is actually his first time going to Earth. And one thing he says to Sisko is, I can't wait to meet your father. And Sisko was thinking, well, I never said you could meet my father. But anyway, it's a fun little exchange, and anything with Garak is just always funny and interesting. And so they're on Earth to meet some Romulans. They've got Kretak there, the familiar Romulan, and Viral, whom we've also seen on Deep Space Nine. And they've got a few Cardassians there that are part of what they call the government in exile, which means like they're supposed to have been Cardassians that are not on Cardassia anymore, not part of the government, but they are also taking part in these allied talks. And Garak only knows a little bit about their history. He hasn't met these Cardassians. And there are also some Klingons there. So it's basically people in Starfleet meeting with the Romulans, Cardassians, and Klingons, and trying to reach an agreement, because this is still during the Dominion War. And so it turns out to be a good story. There's a lot of twists and turns in it, which I don't want to say too much about, but we'll say Admiral Ross is in this, and Leighton, you might remember him from Homefront, the episode where Admiral Leighton was the one who had ordered martial law on Earth. He was the one who really wanted to crack down on finding the changelings and winning the Dominion War. He's in a prison, and Sisko goes to visit him in prison, and they have an interesting conversation. That's really just in one scene, but it's kind of like Sisko is fighting his demons here, because it's right after in the Pale Moonlight where Sisko, remember he had said, I can live with it. He still has this guilty conscience about letting all of this happen with the Romulans, the way they got the Romulans involved in the war. And there is a new character in this book who is really a prominent character by the name of Thomas Roeder. He is a human, and he's a former member of Starfleet. He's also a former friend of Benjamin Sisko. And actually, Sisko says his sister, Judith, now Judith is also a character in this book, and she was never seen on the show, but she is in this book, and Sisko's sister Judith actually used to date Thomas Roeder, but she says that was really just, like, they never really got serious. But they were both interested in music, because Judith is a professional musician. So Thomas Roeder, who used to be in Starfleet, is now part of an anti-war group. He's basically leading these protests against the Dominion War, saying Starfleet has no business being in this war. And he becomes a pivotal character in the book. He actually has a rally at Starfleet headquarters. I mean, it's right in front of Starfleet headquarters. And he leads an anti-war rally there, and Sisko and Garak happen to be there because they wanted to see what he has to say. And Garak, there was a nice talk before this, before they go to this rally, where Garak is saying, like this is during a war and they're having an anti-war protest right in front of Starfleet headquarters. That would never happen on Cardassia. And Sisko was like, well, of course it wouldn't happen on Cardassia. But anyway, they do have the protest, and things happen there. And I thought that, so the whole book was really very intriguing. This story with Roeder and how he turns out, and he does get to later on have a civil conversation with Garak, and they talk, and things happen there. So what I like about the book is, like, Una McCormack is always good at developing these characters, and we know that Deep Space Nine is her favorite Star Trek show, and she is really good at the dialogue with Garak, and the way Sisko is still wrestling with his demons about being in this war and how he got the Romulans involved, and the way it makes references to other things. This book was written several years after Deep Space Nine went off the air, but it still makes a lot of references to the show. Anything that's pertinent to this story. For Odo, they brought back the thing that Garak had used against Odo that made him not able to go back to his gelatinous state. He couldn't change form at all. that happens in the book. I mean, like all of these things come together that have been on the show before that really make it interesting. And bringing up the Maquis and bringing up all of these other things that have happened in the past and how they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do to win this war. It's really a very interesting book, and so I do highly recommend it. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.